Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blackhawks Banter, presented by the Hockey Writers. If you're new, welcome. Our Blackhawks team here at thehockeywriters.com comes together weekly to discuss everything related to the team. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a show. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter. Our usernames are right here on the screen. And be sure to follow us. We just got a new Twitter account for our Blackhawks Banter show. So you can follow us at THW Blackhawks too. And lastly, you can stream our show on all of your favorite streaming platforms or all of your favorite podcast platforms. So whichever way you want to watch, listen, totally up to you, but we're here. I'm your host for tonight, Brooke Lofurno, and I'm with some of my team, Greg Boysen and Shaun Filippelli. Gail, unfortunately, cannot be here tonight, but she should be back next week. So you know what? We're just going for it. We're a team. We pick each other up. We keep going. So it's been a really, really busy week, so let's just get right into it. So for a recap, the Blackhawks got Marc-Andre Fleury, Tyler Johnson, Seth Jones, Caleb Jones, Jake McCabe, and Jujhar Khaira. Wow, that's a lot of change there. And just to let you guys know, if I keep mentioning the Jones brothers, I keep thinking that I'm going to say the Jonas brothers. That's just the millennial in me, but we got them, which is really exciting. But I want to get our first topic in, which is the Marc-Andre Fleury, because that came out yesterday that he informed the Blackhawks that he is going to play this year. It was a little murky there because he took some time to evaluate his hockey future, but now he said he is going to play. So I said in our preview post, I said, I asked you guys what would happen if he decided not to play? What would our goalie tandem look like? But now I'm just going to flip off the original question and say, now that he is going to play, give me your overall thoughts on how the goalie tandem will look like this season. Shaun?
I'll say this much too right off the bat. Obviously, I'm excited that he made this decision, and it's not to go back on my word as far as not thinking that it made sense for the Hawks to get him. I'm still kind of struggling with that, but I guess I might as well jump on the bandwagon here. Fleury is one of my favorites, so seeing him put on the Hawks jersey is exciting in its own right. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do as a Blackhawk. Obviously, he jumps right into the starter's crease. It doesn't matter what Lankinen did last year. It doesn't matter how Delia ended the season. It really doesn't matter. You bring in a Marc-Andre Fleury, he's got the starter's crease. It's his to lose at this point. And he's going to have a lot of rope, in my opinion, because obviously it probably took a lot of convincing that he'd have as much rope as he possibly could get, and that they were willing to give him in Chicago for him to come over and agree to even play as opposed to retiring. He's a goalie that still wants to play. He wants to be out there every night, and he hasn't had that opportunity for a few seasons in Vegas. So they probably gave him that promise and that commitment to say he's going to play as much as he wants, and that's what I suspect we'll see. Lankinen's going to have to take a backseat to that, and that's just the reality of it. That's the reality of the business. So despite that impressive rookie year, he will be in a backup role, but we'll see him in and out throughout the year. And I would say stay tuned and watch out to see how the Hawks are doing once we get to about the midway point, because I wouldn't put it past anybody to really reflect on what this team is doing and if they look like they're going to be in a playoff position or not, and what that means for Fleury's future. Meaning if they're going to make a run, then obviously they'll stick with what works. But if they're not, then don't be surprised if they look to move them.
Greg?
Well, it's hard to be upset with how this all played out. I mean, you literally got a future Hall of Fame goaltender, the reigning Vezina winner, for literally nothing. Sure, we gave Vegas Michael Hekarainen, but they're like, no, that's okay, cool. He could play with you guys next year, so he's still going to be with either Rockford or Indy. So you got him for nothing, and I'm sure that was the slap in the face to Fleury. And that's kind of what we had to wait a couple days to hear from him. And I'm sure he's going to play. Listen, you have a Hall of Fame quality goaltender with a chip on his shoulder. That's okay with me. I mean, he's here for 1 year at $7 million. You have the space this year. Obviously the Hawks have decided to change directions this year and maybe try and squeeze another year out of Kane and Taves. So if they're going to try and go for a playoff spot, your goaltending is pretty darn good right now with Fleury in the mix, linking him the backup. Maybe, as the season goes on, you turn it into more of a tandem, more of a 1A, 1B. We're linking in, to rest Fleury if you're making a run. He's 36. It's not old in the grand scheme of things, but for hockey players, he's not young. So, you got a good, and we're seeing it more and more in today's NHL. There's not a lot of teams that have one go-to guy. There's a lot of guys that have their starter, but then they have a starter quality backup. So I still think Lankinen will get 30 games or so this season. So it's the goaltending. It's improved. When you look at where we were last year, you had Lankinen, who was really good for most of the season, but still unproven. And frankly, two giant question marks behind him. Well, now you got an established veteran and, a pretty good 1B or backup, depending on how that works out.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It definitely is an improvement. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Even if it kind of makes no sense in our brains why he was traded here because of the position we're in, and maybe he needs to win now, and maybe we will win now, I guess. But yeah, it still kind of makes no sense in that way. But like you guys said, I love Marc-Andre Fleury. Definite upgrade. There's no faults there whatsoever. And my thing is, I'm questioning. I know, I think it's going to be Fleury and Lankinen, but I'm actually wondering what they're going to do about Colin Delia and Malcolm Subban. I don't know if they're thinking. I know Fleury's only on a 1-year deal, but I don't know if they're thinking maybe they can sign him again after this season if he'll want to extend here. And if so, what's going to happen with those two? Are they thinking they're wanting to move them, or are they just going to bury them in Rockford? That's a weird kind of question mark to me, but obviously the Blackhawks have some type of plan in goaltending. We just don't know exactly what that looks like, but that's all I keep thinking about is I have no clue what that back roll is going to look like. I don't know where they're going with that, but it should be Lankinen probably is back there. But I can totally see him giving a rest to Fleury too if we're making a playoff push, and that's fine with Lankinen and Subban. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks still there. But like I said, totally improved. Love him, and I hope he balls out. I love it. So now we're going to move on to another free agent. Well, Fleury wasn't a free agent, but you guys know I'm getting at. A free agent that the Blackhawks sent a qualifying offer to, which was Brandon Hagel, which obviously was no surprise. He's also one of our favorite players on this show. We talk about him a lot. However, Scott Powers of The Athletic stated that he's not arbitration eligible at this point or for next year. Therefore, this negotiating process could be a long one for him. How important is it for Stan Bowman to get this taken care of? Greg?
Well, I don't think it's a question of if he's going to get re-signed. It's when. We went through this with Dylan Strome last year. What's happening? He's going to be here. He's going to get signed. It's just a matter of when they can come to an agreement on a term. Do they get a bridge deal done? Probably one of those 2-year deals that we've seen a lot. To get him where you still have his negotiation rights at the end. And there's a lot of money coming off the books in the next couple of seasons. So that's probably what they're working on, finding that right number for the next 2 seasons, seeing how he progresses and develops, and then you can sign him long-term if he's earned it. So, it's going to get done. They've got the money to get him signed on a deal that he's worth, probably somewhere, in the, $2 million range, somewhere like that for 2 seasons. That's what I would think would get done at this point. So I wouldn't worry about the if. It's just a matter of the when.
Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree that it feels like it's more inevitable that it will happen. But to touch on your question, how important is it? Very. I mean, it has to happen. This is a player that came in and proved that he could fill a role that is necessary on any team, let alone this Blackhawks team. And there's a lot of comparisons thrown around, and we did so on the show. Like you said, his name comes up quite a bit, where you lose a guy like Andrew Shaw, but you have a Brandon Hagel who's there to sort of take over and take the reins. And what a lot of people don't realize, and even us on this show might not realize all the time, is this is still a 22-year-old. He's still 22 years old, and look at the comfort level that he had, especially in the latter end of that season. So that's the kind of player you want around, whether you're on a rebuild or not. He proved his worth, he proved his value, he proved he could play. His stat line across the board is quality, and not just in terms of points of production, but you look at the fact that he can throw his body around, he uses his minutes wisely, and he makes the players around him better. So that's the kind of player you want. Doesn't matter what position your franchise is in, you need that player on your team. So I agree it is inevitable that he will be signed, and I certainly hope that is the case. And it's very important that they get this done and that they do it right.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a very important move for Bowman to get done because obviously he brings a lot of elements to our team. My thing is I don't think it should probably be that long of a process, only because even though Hagel had a very good year, he doesn't have a whole body of work kind of to show for it. So I don't think it should be that long as they think it might be. Maybe it will, though. I'm not the one obviously negotiating it, but I do think it's really important because obviously we need forward depth, and he's a big part of that. And like you said, without Andrew Shaw, someone like that, he kind of brings that element to us. So I think it's important. I'm not worried about him not signing. I do think he will, but yeah, I guess it just depends. We'll see. But I do think that it would be a short deal, though, like a 2 or 3 year maybe. That seems to make the most sense. But like I said, we'll see. But we'll be right here to talk about it once he does sign. So speaking of free agents, it was kind of a surprising free agency to see who we let walk. They let David Camp sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Vinny Nostroza signed with the Sabres. Nikita Zadorov is going to the Calgary Flames. They have his signing rights. Who knows if he'll sign there, but it's not us. And but the most surprising one, I think, though, was Pius Suter. He ended up signing a 2-year deal with the Red Wings. He was 4th on the team in goals with 14 and 27 points. So do you think it was a mistake to let him go? Or are you okay with it, Sean?
No, I'm not okay with it. And yes, I think it was a mistake. That's me talking from this end of the spectrum. Obviously, they have other plans in mind, and maybe it was just the price tag. Maybe there was demands we're not aware of. Maybe they had the Johnson acquisition lined up, and they knew that was coming. So that sort of replaces what Suter could bring. But the reality is, here's a 24-year-old who came into the league with professional experience overseas, a similar path that Kubalik took. Playing over in the Swiss league as a former MVP in that league, obviously has a presence to him, obviously knows how to score. We saw that countless times throughout the year. He was near the top of the rookie class the whole way through, even despite having streaky production. And frankly, that's what excited me about Suter is he had such streaky production last year, yet he still had such an impressive campaign. So I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do when he evened that out a little bit. And we're not going to get to see that in a Blackhawks uniform now. And when you look at Suter's experience on the professional level and on the junior level, his resume will suggest that when he has further tenure in any league he's played in, he improves year over year. That might sound, like it's the norm, but it's easier said than done. And he's proven that in any league, anywhere he's played, he continues to get better within that tenure. So I was really hoping that if the Hawks could keep him, that they're just going to see more and more out of him as each season came and went. And we're just never going to see that now, at least not for next year. So I'm certainly disappointed, and I would have rather kept him over acquiring Johnson. So I'm not happy with it.
Greg?
Well, I think time will tell if it's a mistake. Would I have liked him back? Sure. But am I, losing sleep that he's gone? No, not at all. I'd rather have him at 3.2 million than Dylan Strome at 3 million, but it is what it is. He had a really nice season. Is he a guy that is going to doom the franchise because he signed with Detroit? No. He as Sean said, he was very streaky, which is that's the norm for first year players in the NHL. It's very rare that they can come over and be consistently scoring goals. Those guys end up in Toronto in the Hall of Fame. So streakiness, that didn't bother me as much. But he spent a long time, a lot of games this season playing between Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, and he averaged less than half a point a game. So yeah, he was a nice player, but the Blackhawks have a roster full of nice players that can fill in. They've got Lucas Reichel coming in. They brought in Borgstrom from the Panthers. Those are very similar type players that I'm sure Stan Bowman feels I can just plug those two guys in and we'll get the same production out of both of those guys, or one of those guys. Maybe, you got an Alex Nylander coming back in. You would hope a healthy Alex Nylander could give you half a point per game at probably $2 million less than what Suter is. So, yeah, nice player, but easily replaceable. What you already have in house, you have guys that can give you that same production. Now, 2-3 years down the road could be a different story, but heading into this upcoming season, I don't think he'll be terribly missed. Do I wish he was here? Sure. But as I said, I'm not going to lose sleep that he's with the Red Wings. We'll have to watch the grind line during the year to see if they're as happy in, say, December as they were in July.
I think they will be. But if you guys had watched, for the viewers that are watching, if you guys tuned into our show early when it first started, you guys knew I was on the Alex Nylander fan train. I was all aboard that train. So obviously in my brain, yeah, he is going to come in and just really take over Suter's role. Joking, but hopefully maybe we'll see. Something about this though really is not sitting well with me with Suter, and kind of the big thing is kind of what Shaun touched on a little bit, was about he had a pretty impressive year, so he can only get better, can't get worse than that. So that kind of part stings a little bit. I understand we didn't give away Artemi Panarin, I understand that, but something also that keeps sticking out of my brain is who picked him up. It was Steve Yzerman, general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. That guy knows how to evaluate talent. He knows exactly what he's getting, and obviously he can take nothing and turn it into something. So that part kind of scares me. He obviously saw something in him that maybe the Blackhawks weren't seeing. But like I said, we'll see if that turns to fruition. But I'm really not okay with this, actually. It's still, we had a couple days to think about it, and yeah, I don't like it at all. I think that we're missing yet again on another talent, but we'll see how that kind of turns into, and maybe we'll have a different tune, but yeah, don't like it right now. So we're halfway through our show. So for a reminder to those of you who are tuning in, hello, welcome to Blackhawks Banter presented by the Hockey Writers. I'm Brooke Lofurno, your host for tonight, joined by Greg Boysen and Shaun Filippelli. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Follow us on Twitter. Our names are right here on the screen. And also you can stream our show on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So be sure to tune in. Moving on now. So I think after all these moves, the big question is, are the Blackhawks contenders now? They obviously made moves that you would think only a contender would make. So in your brain, right now, as the roster sits, does all these moves make them a contender? Shaun?
No, not yet. I'm not convinced. Would I like to say that they are? Of course, but I mean, we knew what they were getting into when they claimed that they were going to have a rebuild on their hands, and they're trying to speed that process up in ways that surprise a lot of us. Obviously, they brought in some big names, Fleury and Jones right off the top. Those are players who you would have expected did go to a contender. So at this point, it just, I don't want to call them pretenders per se, but does it push them closer to, hoping to fight for a playoff position? Yeah, I'll get behind that. But as far as being contenders, we still need to see how these pieces fit and if there's actually cohesion and if they can make it work. We've seen in this league, even in recent years, teams that just stock up on talent that individually can do their jobs, but you put them all in the same room and it just collapses. And so I certainly don't want that to be the case in Chicago. I don't want to be proven right here, but they haven't proven anything. We have to see how it all fits. We have to see if it does work the way that they're trying to mold it. And then we can talk about them being contenders. But before we even get there, I want to see them make the playoffs. So first and foremost, can this team make the playoffs? Yes, they're in a better position to do that. Are they contenders? Not yet.
Greg?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, you left that kind of open-ended there. Contender. Contending for what exactly? For a playoff spot? Yeah, I think so. Contending for a Stanley Cup? No, not this year. They're a long way from that. But you got to get to the playoffs first. And then once you get to the playoffs, hot goaltender, good defense could go take you further than you ever imagine. They definitely have improved. They have obviously switched gears from the rebuild last year. It's easy to say that when there's not going to be any tickets on sale for the year. And then Stan Bowman certainly made improvements defensively. The goaltending still a little weak up front, but we'll see how these new guys and returning guys come in. He built this team like a guy that A, needed some good PR, and B, like a guy who's this season's, his job depends on a successful season. As you guys know, I'm not a fan of Jeremy Colleton. I think you can give him the Tampa Bay Lightning roster and he'd still struggle to make the playoffs. So with all these moves and these big contracts given out, that puts pressure on Colleton, I think, for the first time since he's been here. And if this team stumbles out the gate like they have every season under Jeremy Colleton, those first couple weeks are usually pretty rough. Maybe we see a change, or if Stan's thinking, hey, I went out there and got you all these guys and the results aren't the same, maybe we see a move. But they definitely are improved, and it's you can't really be mad at that you have they'll be better to watch this season than they were last year. Hopefully they can do more than just score on the power play, and maybe they'll be okay.
Yes, that's really what's important here, is that they're actually going to be putting out a product that is watchable for us, and that's really what's important. But something I think that was sticking out to me about when people were kind of talking about this online was it's hard to win in this league. Vegas couldn't win last year with how deep they are. Colorado couldn't with how deep they are. So stuff like that kind of makes you think maybe the Blackhawks, just aren't there to win the Stanley Cup. I think they're still weak actually in a lot of areas. They're still kind of needing some, I don't know what it is yet, but we'll see. And I think we talked about this before, but just because it looks good on paper doesn't mean it's going to look good on the ice. We've seen it so many times, but for right now, do they look like a playoff team? Yes, but I don't see them getting very far still but who knows, maybe they'll actually work together, mesh, have good chemistry better than we think. So I guess we'll just have to see. But I think we could all agree playoffs is a possibility, but maybe not Stanley Cup champions yet.
They're in a good division to make a run at it, because outside of, Colorado's the class of the Central. And then outside of that, you kind of got to, everybody else is kind of all in one big slog. St. Louis and Dallas should be the next best teams, but they're kind of both on the downside. And, Minnesota, Nashville kind of in the same situation. So, it should be Colorado's division, and after that, anything can happen. So they're in the right division to compete, that's for sure.
Maybe they'll actually beat Nashville this year too, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah. We always struggle against them, though. I don't know what it is, and thankfully we don't have to face the Panthers or Tampa 20 times. That helps a little bit too. I'm happy about that. But, so I actually, since we're running pretty good here on time, I'm just going to ask the question. So I had sent out an outline for our viewers that don't know. We send out outlines of what we're going to talk about before each show. And before the show, I had asked a question about, do you guys expect to see a salary dump trade of some sort for the Blackhawks? Because they took on a lot of salary. With Jake McCabe, they signed him for 4 years, $16 million. Fleury's at $7 million. Tyler Johnson is at $5 million a year for the next 3 years. So I asked if you guys saw a salary cap dump happening maybe soon, and then Stan Bowman came out today and talked about how he says he does not have to do a salary cap dump type of trade because they're in a good position right now. But I guess because of that, do you guys think there should be a salary cap dump trade of some sort? What would you like to see that kind of adjustment, I guess? I guess that's how I'm going to put it, Shaun.
I don't know, like you said, I don't know that it's going to have to be a salary cap dump per se, but I'm still going to say that, Strome's $3 million, it just feels like that needs to come off their books. Obviously, he played his way out of favor with this team. And then you look at the moves that they made to this point in the offseason, and if anything, that just supports the fact that they don't need a Dylan Strome. There could be another team out there that does, and he has another opportunity to have another resurgence to his career, which is what he originally experienced when he came over to Chicago, and all signs pointed to the fact that was a great move for the Hawks, but he's regressed since. And obviously his fit here isn't that great unless he's playing beside Alex DeBrincat, and clearly we know that that can't always be the way that they make things up for him. So it just feels like, Strome's fit might have faded. And if they can get him off their books for that $3 million before they have to renegotiate by the end of next season, that's going to be much better for them, because not only do they save on the financials, but they can extract some sort of value versus just seeing him walk anyway, because I'm hard pressed to believe that they're going to want to re-sign him after that anyway. So might as well get rid of him while they can and get something for him.
Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bowman is saying what, he's supposed to say. He's going to say that. He's not wrong. They don't technically need to make a salary dump. They're in pretty good shape. And if you subscribe to The Athletic, Scott Powers put together a real good piece about their cap situation for the next 5 years. And they're actually in pretty good shape going forward, salary cap wise, especially if we actually get, a raise in the cap here in another year or two. So he's going to say, I don't have to make a move, because he's not going to come out in public and say, my God, I'm desperate, I need a move, because then you take away any kind of potential leverage you may have. I'm sure there are guys on there, I'm sure he would love to move. I mean, we've mentioned Strome. while he hasn't specifically been in any major trade rumors, as Sean said, the moves they've made this offseason and how his season ended last year certainly looks like he's not part of the long-term plans anymore. That could change. But you look at a guy like Calvin DeHaan, you look at a guy like Brett Conley, those are definitely guys that if somebody calls, he's gonna see what's out there. So do they need to make a salary move? Not necessarily, but I bet you if he can, he will. So, I mean, those three names probably pop up as the most likely to be moved. We may have to wait till training camp starts and somebody gets injured in the preseason. All of a sudden, a Dylan Strome or a Calvin DeHaan looks a lot more desirable on the market when a team really needs somebody in a hurry. So might not happen today, but we could see it before opening night.
Yeah, you made a very good point about general managers don't usually come out and say, "Hey, I'm going to make a salary cap trade, so everyone call me because that's what I'm going to do." But I still think something's going to happen though, because they were talking about how they were trying to shop Calvin DeHaan during free agency, and I guess obviously nothing kind of came to fruition there. But I still think Strome, could be moved. I think that's a real possibility. We talked about that even before all this kind of hit, but it seemed like when Tyler Johnson came here, that was basically an indication that Strome was probably out. But then Suter walked, so then I don't know, but I still, think that he's a good candidate to move. I think maybe down the road, that's going to help even our salary cap be a little better, especially considering they're going to have to re-sign a bunch of people after next season. But I still think something's going to happen there with either DeHaan or Strome. I just don't know what that will be. Again, we'll see. That's basically the theme of the show. We'll see. So finally, to wrap things up, obviously we just said there was a lot going on, a lot of trades, a lot of signings. I think most Blackhawk fans are pretty pleased with the results of it. So I want to leave the floor to you guys. Out of all the moves, which one was your favorite? Greg?
I was a big fan of the Jake McCabe signing. That one kind of flew under the radar. There wasn't a whole lot of chatter about the Blackhawks being interested in him. And you figured once you had Seth Jones locked up, there wasn't going to be much other done on that back line. But man, he's a really good player. I know a lot of fans in Chicago probably aren't very familiar with him. He's played in Buffalo his whole career, and to play defense in Buffalo, that's not an easy chore these last few seasons. But his numbers have been really good on really bad teams. He only played 13 games last season because he had a knee injury, but he said last week he's going to be good to go. But you just look at those numbers. Just from those 13 games, he had a 56.6 Corsi for percentage, and that came with starting over 58% of his shifts in the defensive zone. So he's a very good defensive defenseman. He's it's almost like having another Connor Murphy in the lineup, or he's kind of cut from that same cloth. He's a little bit like a Nicholas Jarmelson. He's going to block shots. He's going to hit people. He's not going to wow you with his offensive prowess, but he plays solid defense, and that's what they need. They need more. He's a veteran presence. As I said, he's had career in Buffalo on some pretty lousy teams. His career Corsi for percentage is just under 47%, and 3 out of his last 4 seasons he's been hovering right around even. So if he can be an even Corsi player on bad teams, starting all day in the defensive zone, then that's a pretty darn good player. So I really like that signing. I think it really bolsters, and then it gives you a chance. If DeHaan is here, they don't trade him. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having Calvin DeHaan on your third pairing. It gives guys like Mitchell and Bodine a full season in Rockford. That's just fine with me. I think they need that. They don't have enough of that seasoning just yet. So that move also makes everybody go down maybe to the spot that they should be at for this upcoming season. So there's a lot to like about that move.
Sean?
Yeah, there's a lot to like about a lot of the moves as far as who joined the team. I mean, we can sit here and talk about all the names that are coming on board, and we have, and for all the right reasons. But to me, I'm going to go straight back to sort of addition by subtraction here, and the fact that they were able to extract value out of getting rid of Zadorov's rights was a huge win in my eyes, because first of all, I was never much of a fan to begin with from the hockey side of things. I never felt he was a good fit. I didn't think he was throughout the year. He didn't seem to mold or gel well with this team. And knowing that his contract was coming up by a season's end anyway, it just felt like they needed to do something to to get rid of that contract versus even thinking about re-signing it. And then, the offseason came and went, and he wasn't taken in any kind of expansion draft, and you just weren't really sure what was going to go on there. So the fact that they were able to pull something out of their hat and get some kind of value out of his rights was, in my opinion, a huge win, because he doesn't fit on this team. Excuse me. Now with him going somewhere else, it cleans up what was a rather messy blue line last season. And even when you get rid of Duncan Keith, look at all the defense that were already there and those that we've added. So this should just help clean things up a little bit, make it a little bit more of a streamlined pairing system that the Blackhawks can really start to work with, and hopefully have players that fit with their style a lot better than Zadorov ever did. So that they got anything and he didn't just walk was a huge win in my mind.
Guys, I think Shaun has been waiting his whole life for this moment, because he has been on the Zadorov not fan trade, and he's been waiting for this moment to be like, I told you guys it was bad.
I can't believe we got anything for him, and I'm just pumped about that.
Yeah, that was actually pretty. A third round pick is pretty good. It's not like we got like a 6th round or something like that. So
I wouldn't have even cared if it was an 8th round.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Shaun was excited. I think Greg was excited. We were all excited about that. We've all been waiting so long for this. But I'm actually glad we all had different answers for this question, because I thought we'd actually all have similar answers. But I am going to say the Tyler Johnson trade. And I know that it comes with caution. He's a 30-year-old 4th line player. I get it. And he's also owed a lot of money for the next 3 years. So I know this could go terribly. But someone like him is who I kept hoping that the Blackhawks would get, something who could anchor at center, but also give scoring, someone who is actually reliable. And I kind of like that veteran kind of move there, because our center depth is kind of sketchy with Taves being questionable, and then Kampf being gone, and then obviously Suter's gone, and we're kind of just so many question marks. I was glad that we actually got someone that is reliable. So I'm happy about that. Maybe that could change, but I love it right now. And for the most part, like I said, I think we're all pretty happy with what transpired. We're happy Zadorov's gone. We got our people. We're all pretty good right now. We're all vibing. So to our viewers, we want to know, what was your favorite move? There was a lot that we didn't mention, but we want to know, what is your favorite move that they made? So that will wrap up this episode of Blackhawks Banter. Thank you so much to everyone who watched and continue to watch our show. We really appreciate it. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube. We will respond to comments. We love talking with you guys. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We love tweeting with you guys there too. And thank you so much again, Greg and Shaun, for joining me. And obviously this was really busy, so we'll have a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks. So be sure to stay tuned. All right. Good night, guys.